3000.
What he's doing, my name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a staple of the Melbourne nightclub scene, MJ. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here. It's taken a while. I do remember when you first started this, you were like, I want you to be here. And it's only taken about, 90 episodes or so. But
Yeah, you'll be 89.
there you go. Well, pretty close. But
Very
we made it
close.
happen. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you're simply known as MJ,
I am.
but I've heard maybe your real name is Michael Jordan. Is that correct?
That could be right, yes. It was a very conscious decision many moons ago when I was running nightclubs for MJ to become the brand, I suppose, because there was too much crossover between people. I just had no idea who they were. Drop my name on the door or, whatever, or, haggling for free drinks or, drink cards and all this kind of shit. And I kind of went, you know what, I'm going to leave my friendship group to, know what's up. And then I started answering my phone as MJ and started signing off as MJ. My business card said MJ, and it just kind of made that be the entity that was kind of in the club scene sort of thing.
For sure.
It honestly made life a bit fucking easier and a lot less questions to ask. And, did your parents fucking change your name? And you're like, yeah, if you do the math on that one, that's probably not how it worked,
But it must have been, growing up though, you had the name when he would have been at the height of the...
Yeah, 100%. And I was playing basketball pretty seriously as well in the early to mid 90s, which made life a bit interesting.
Yeah.
For example, at high school, we were getting new jerseys for the basketball team. They were like, what number do you want? And I was like, number 15, which was Latrell Sprewell for the Golden State Warriors, who was my favourite player at the time. And then the captain of basketball behind my back just went off and got me number 23. And so I played 2 or 3 seasons with Jordan, 23 on my back. And every time I stepped on the court, the other team would just be like, oh, you're getting it.
And did you have the Jordans as well?
No, not that bad.
There you go.
Couldn't afford them growing up, but now that I can, I've bought a couple of pairs in my time, just make up for lost time. So.
For sure. So I think the first time I would have met you has been the same as a lot of the first time people would have met you is on the door at different nightclubs.
Yep.
But I don't even know where you grow up and where you came from. So let's get into a bit of that, man.
Well, way back when, I was actually born in country Victoria, but parents divorced when I was very young and came to the inner east. So I grew up around that kind of Hawthorne, Kew, Camberwell, Baldwin kind of area.
Nice family place.
Yeah, it was. But having said that, coming from the country with a bunch of kids, we weren't very affluent. And I went to a all-boys private high school as well. And that was interesting because I was very much out of my element with a whole bunch of, silver spooner kids and all that kind of thing. So it was very strange growing up in that, I was part of that. And through that particular school, you had sister schools and you had formals and you had, all this kind of shit. And so I had this whole friendship group that was, very much that Eastern Suburbs private school kind of thing. But then because I was playing basketball growing up, I met a whole different group of people who became my actual friends,
Representative basketball, like Friday night type stuff?
Yeah, basically Hawthorn competition and Hawthorn Magic. I was in the first Hawthorn Magic team ever.
Were they blue and green, weird colours? Was that who they were?
Well, the first team was actually just shitty grey singlets before they even became Hawthorn Magic with the colours. I had this whole other kind of friendship group that went to different private schools, just scattered, but mostly, held together by A, basketball, obviously, but then B, urban music, like hip-hop and R&B, in that early kind of 90s to mid-90s thing.
Yeah, because at that stage, I'm a bit younger, but at that stage, the hip-hop music wasn't everywhere in the 90s, but it did have a lot of ties with the basketball community because there's kind of that crossover with the Americanized sort of popular culture.
Yeah, 100%. If you look at one of the super popular videos from back then, it was called Jam Session.
Which was the technique.
Yeah, which was highlights of NBA basketball, but all these dope new songs and whatever.
Yeah.
And that really encompasses like that point in time where basketball it just been started to be shown on free to air. You have like the Dream Team and stuff like that, and then also hip hop music became a bit more accessible because places actually started selling it. Because I remember listening to, what was it, American Top 40, but it was on Fox FM or something back in the day.
Rick Dees used to do it.
I think it was or Casey Kasem. I'm older, remember?
How much older are you? I'm 42 this month.
I'm 47.
Okay,
not too much, but yeah, you know, you'd stay up on a Sunday night and listen to that, but you were lucky to hear one song, you know. Yeah. But then we had a mate who would, he had one of those long play VCR things, so you could record for like 4 hours or something. Yeah. And so he was every Friday, Saturday night putting a 4-hour tape in, setting his alarm, getting up 4 hours later, putting in the new one, and then during the week he'd like get all the good stuff. And so we had these tapes of just all these film clips of like, you know, Tribe Called Quest and New Edition and all this kind of stuff.
And he's filtering out all the crap for you.
Yeah, and so we like had all that, and then you know, slowly you'd start hearing more, and then we had some friends that were going to a place called Effect at the Warehouse, and at the time we were still underage, but some of the girls in our group would get dolled up and get let in and all this sort of stuff, and they were getting tapes that the DJs were making, like live from the club.
Wow.
And so we're listening to them. So on a Sunday we'd play pick up basketball and, you know, put those in, and people making their own mixtapes and stuff. And then, you know, from there you're like, where do we get this shit? And so then started hanging out at Central Station. And then, yeah, just kind of being a part of that. But basketball and, yeah, hip-hop and R&B essentially was kind of the thing that held our group together.
For sure. And I think a lot of people were in a similar sort of situation.
Yeah.
I remember that Jam Session VHS, you know, it had Rim Shaker, but was Rump Shaker, but they made it PG.
Yeah.
It had Don't Sweat the Technique. It had a few songs like that on it, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And you're seeing little clips, and you're seeing the basketball, and that was, it was huge.
And I mean, that was wild because it was still, like, it was very, very much, you know, you had the, I suppose, dance music subculture. Like, people were mostly still pub people back then. You know, you graduated high school, you go to the local pub with your mates and sing pints and listen to a band or whatever. Yeah. And so, you know, that whole nightclub scene and dance party scene and rave scene was still very much kind of underground. You know, it hadn't crossed over into commercialism. And then when you're talking about hip-hop and R&B music, that was an even smaller kind of part of that, you know.
For sure. So when you started going out, you were going to places like Warehouse?
Yeah, like so basically I turned 18 in 95, at the start of 95. And so there was, Effect of the Warehouse, like Bump and Grind at Chase's, there was Silvers on a Sunday, and they weren't hip-hop clubs. They were, people called them R&B clubs, but at the time, all urban music was kind of lumped into the same thing. Yep. So
Carousel used to do a bit of a thing as well.
Groovelicious at Carousel. I worked there for a couple of years.
The Silver, was that those? No?
Who was there? That was Craig G, actually, and Clay Powell were doing Groovelicious. But then, yeah, Damien is kind of that era where he was DJing there and then started doing his own stuff and everything like that. But yeah, back then it was just like, you know, R&B and hip hop was all kind of considered the same thing. You know what I mean? Like hip hop heads were hip hop heads, but it was all urban music. And so everyone kind of went to the same clubs, unless you're talking like the real shit, like Madisms and First Floor and all that kind of stuff.
Sort of thing. Yeah. And I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was kind of a little bit racial as well, wasn't it? Like there was Asian nights, there was also like Indian nights, and there was kind of WOG nights, which you would say, like all this sort of stuff. So as a white guy from Hawthorne, did you fit in there?
I stood out, that's for sure. I mean, I remember at the Warehouse, I was one of like two white dudes essentially who went there every week and knew the promoters and DJs and all that kind of thing. Everyone else was either African American, Indian, Mauritian, you know, whatever. Like it's that whole thing of, I suppose, it being a minority invented and driven music, you know, especially in the early 90s, that those kind of communities, you know, were drawn towards it, sort of thing. So very much in the early 90s to mid 90s, those clubs were, you know, just Benetton, you know, United Colours of everything. As long as you were into the music, like no one really cared.
Yeah, but it seems weird now in the 2020s to say, but there was racially divided. People would say, "Oh, that's a Greek night. You don't go to that." Like there was even different subgenres within the European community of that sort of thing. It was very racially sort of.
I mean, 100%. Like if you look at the first place I ever worked was at the Metro, at the top of Burke Street in the city. And I was promoting Pop, which was their Saturday night. And then they had a night called Joy, which was their Friday night. And, you know, Pop and Joy are pretty, you know, ubiquitous names. But it was, you know, Pop is for the, you know, younger white crew.
which was very southeastern as well.
Yeah,
very
and,
much,
and Friday Night Joy was the, ethnic night, I suppose. And they didn't really advertise as such, but that's just the way it was because, people, I don't know, still stuck within their communities, I suppose. So.
And then Thursday night was for the Misfits.
Yeah, Goo. I remember Goo quite fondly.
Crazy, man. It's a shame that like those larger nightclubs don't really exist anymore because it's a real like sort of snapshot in time,
100%. And as I said before, I think it was probably the mid-90s where clubbing became a bit more mainstream and dance music kind of infiltrated the charts a bit more. And it wasn't this kind of unknown weird thing. It became a bit more mainstream.
For sure.
And if you look at the Metro, they were licensed to something like 1,900 people. And on Saturdays, we were doing between 3,000 and 3,300 people every fucking Saturday.
Yeah.
That's crazy numbers.
For sure, man. You get the busloads of people come through. The turnover would happen when people would go there, then go to another club, and people would go to multiple places and then end up at Metro. It was,
And I mean, at that time, it wasn't just there. There was that, there was Chevron, there was the Palace in St Kilda, there was Chasers. There was multiple really big clubs in Melbourne that were, doing pretty well.
Proper internet though, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
So you had to go somewhere, and then you couldn't see where anyone else was. So you just well, this place sucks.
Yeah.
My friend said he's going here.
Yeah.
He's said that we can drop his name and we can get in for $8 instead of 12.
Yeah. I mean, 100%, and I think that's half the reason why those big places dropped off is I remember when I was working at Carousel for that night Groovalicious, there was a heap of people I would consider friends, but I didn't have their phone numbers. I didn't see them during the week. I wasn't catching
up. You were going to be.
Wasn't catching up with them for coffee or anything, but you knew every Saturday they were at the spot. And so if you missed a week or you're sick or something, it's almost like you had FOMO and you're like, oh shit, I'm not seeing everyone and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think once social media happened and stuff, you didn't have to go to those places to kind of catch up with people because you just go onto MySpace or whatever and you knew what people were up to anyway.
For sure.
So it kind of took away that urgency of physically catching up with people.
Yeah, and it changed the whole promotion game as well. When you would have people in the office calling up, "Oh, are you all coming in tonight?" Whatever like that. We used to do from the uni night perspective.
Yeah.
Once social media took over, it was just you put a post up and that's it.
100%.
The promoters kind of didn't promote as much.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I was pretty much a full-time promoter from when I was 18. And I remember, going down Chapel Street, having about 8 coffees a day. And, you're going to stores to catch up with people, give some free passes to the girls at, Bettina Liano or something. And even, there was myself and the guys I was running nights with. We'd go to Melbourne Uni, every Thursday. The night we were running was on Thursday night. And we went there so freaking often. We knew the layout of the place, and people assumed we went to uni there because we were just there so fucking much. But you had to put in the hard yards and kiss babies and be out there and be visible. Whereas when internet starts, it's paid post, this, do that. Message people, email, text as well was another big one where you just put your list in, hey. So
yeah, the text thing was you'd get a text message from the venue and you'd show that and you might get discounted entry. That was actually the beginning of the end sort of thing for that sort of actual needing people to promote it for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you look at, especially, I'd say within the urban scene at the moment, there's a bunch of venues that kind of turn over, but it's the same guys running the place. But, they'll have a night, it'll run for 6 months, and then they'll rebrand it and do another opening night and whatever.
Because of the launch potential.
Yeah, and it's just there isn't that kind of, I suppose, loyalty that there used to be where people are oh, that's my spot. You know what I mean? So, a lot of the promoters, and I recently did an event with some of them, but, a few of them, kind of struck me as computer nerds. You know what I mean? Not particularly personable people, not particularly
the algorithms.
Outgoing. Yeah, but they were just really good at social media marketing.
Yeah.
And they were running nights, whereas, back in the day, someone like that was, not... they might have been behind the scenes helping, but they were not the driving force and running a night.
They weren't the face of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all changed a lot, that sort of stuff. And I guess the longevity can't be there forever where people are going to go to nightclubs for, 2,000-3,000 people.
Yeah.
So it evolves and it changes. And now we've got more smaller venues, which are cool as well,
Yeah.
So it all kind of cycles.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think that's better. For nurturing talent and for, kind of building community and stuff like that, I definitely think smaller venues the way to go because, when it's big, whatever, DJs are getting, sets for how many freaking followers they've got on Instagram and all this kind of stuff.
Which doesn't translate often. And
sometimes doesn't translate into being a good DJ. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I've booked some of these people on request, before.
From the venues.
Yeah.
Request. Yeah.
I mean, a good example is a venue that a new venue major took over, and they were using a lot of my DJs, but I wasn't booking it as such. And he wanted a public holiday weekend. And I was like, oh, yeah, DJ Flagrant's available, this, that, and the other. And I got this email back going, I'm not going to pay this money for some guy that's only got 2,000 Instagram followers. And I was like, man, if that's how you fucking judge talent, like, you're in the wrong game. Like, you shouldn't have anything to do with entertainment booking.
No. But look, to be honest, that's how people judge people now at a glance. They don't actually do the research. Yeah. That guy's obviously not going to go and dive into Flago's back catalogue. He just looks at it, takes him 15 seconds and says, all right, well, that's 2,000 followers, and that's how I judge them. Yeah. But that's what a lot of people do now.
Yeah, but I mean, that shows that a lot of venues are very lazy with their marketing. Like if they're relying on DJs to bring the crowd, well, they've got other bigger issues to worry about,
But I think some of these venues, and I can't speak for that one because I don't know specifically, but they're worried about what it looks like from their venue's perspective.
Yeah.
So they want to have someone with 50,000 followers, even if it doesn't translate to dollars, but it looks better for their socials or whatever. Yeah. They get more shares. They're going to get more engagement. At the end of the day, you're running an Instagram account or you're running a venue.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And it depends what your motivation is. Like some places, need a kick with, wider exposure like that. Other places that are packed don't need to do that. So they can, afford to book better DJs purely on talent. You know what I mean? Like Blue Bar's a good example, which I know Hijack was speaking about a few weeks ago when he interviewed him. Like, that place can afford to book sick DJs because it's only licensed for 100 people. It's been there forever and it's always packed. Yep. You know what I mean? Whereas other venues might, want someone with a bigger online presence if they're just starting out or, they don't know what they're doing on the marketing side or they don't have a rep yet or, they want to be affiliated with certain people to, I suppose find their lane, I guess.
The whole thing post social media has changed, man.
100%.
For the better or for the worse, but I think it's,
Yeah. I mean, I ran nights for years and stuff like that. And I just, I aged out of it in terms of my immediate friendship group, going out and supporting nights and whatever. Because, people got kids and people got mortgages and stuff like that. But even with the social media marketing, it was hard to kind of, know who you were hitting. And there was, even if you were running a successful night, and then you had your hosts under you and stuff like that, the actual crowd, you had no idea who was there. So you're kind of sitting back and just kind of watching shit and, being pretty bored at the venue, because you weren't hanging out with your mates kind of thing like you were when you were 18.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Once the social media came into it, you didn't even really know who was popular.
Yeah.
Because someone could have a lot of friends or a lot of followers or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're going to come and hang out with them at a venue, which pre-social media, you knew that. That guy always comes with his 20 mates and they drink over there and then sometimes they go over there.
100%. And that's how it's changed. You could hire someone and go, I know that guy's good for 100 people every week, Yeah. Or I know that particular girl is going to bring her friends and she's going to start the dance floor every week. Yeah. So even if she just brings her, 5-6 friends, as long as she's there at the start, and starts the dance floor, it's that's worth the $50 or $75 I'm going to pay,
Yeah.
Whereas, now it's so socially media driven. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think that even when people do pump a lot of money into that stuff, it doesn't necessarily work. You still need the core crowd that's going to be there anyway,
Yeah.
People might like something, they might click on it. It doesn't mean they're going to fucking vote with their feet, go there and pay entry to your venue.
100%. And, I mean, going back to, I suppose, the urban scene, fucking people are going to flame me for using that word.
But that's what it was called.
Encompassing at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of places that, are just pushing that whole, booth life, freaking whatever. But, a lot of the people, they aren't going every week and supporting it or anything like that. They're saving up and once a month or once every 2 months, they'll blow $1,000 and get a booth, get a bottle and, ball out for the night. But I think the motivation's changed where a lot of people are going to those clubs, to be on social media for Instagram, for this, for whatever. And the music isn't their motivation for going to the venue. It's just the soundtrack to their night kind of thing. They don't particularly care. And all the DJs are playing 1 hour sets. You go from one club to one club to one club. It's all the same music. Nowhere's really different.
Yeah.
So it's Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to a club by choice in a long time.
By choice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally I'll go to somewhere if I've scored a gig for someone, and I'll go and support or whatever. But like in terms of actually, unless there's an international DJ on or supporting friends or something like that,
You got to fill in time.
like I mean, I'm not going to a club to have fun. Like I've done the dash there. So.
Yeah. And I think also, and it sounds like two guys in their 40s complaining about nightlife.
I know we sound like old jaded dudes,
but at the same time, I don't think kids are doing it as much anyway either.
Yeah.
I think that there's always going to be a market for people to go out and pick up, and meet someone of the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever and get drunk. That's always going to be there.
But see, Tinder's taking care of that
For
as well.
sure.
So that's another reason,
Another one,
like.
man. But also, kids these days aren't that motivated to drink like the generations prior. Now, whether it's drug culture, whether it's people are more health conscious, it's just changed the way that they are, which I think, which sounds bad. It's going to have a negative effect on like the pub nightlife party scene.
Yeah.
Has to.
I mean, I think it's all of the above. Like it is Tinder, it's social media, it's this, it's the fact that all that clubbing shit and dance music and everything is now so mainstream and so commercialized that, it's not this small community anymore where, people support each other and, it's whatever. It's just like so freaking mainstream that you can, you can walk into, any store and hear the music that you're going to hear on, Spotify or at a club or this or, whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a million different reasons why clubbing ain't like it used to be, Maloney.
For sure. Well, getting back on your personal journey with the scene though. So when you started running nights, did you start doing the door selection sort of stuff early, or was that kind of, where does that fit in?
I basically started as $1 a pass promoter, where like
Put your little initials.
Yeah, give passes out, and anyone that uses it, you get $1. Like I literally started right at the bottom doing that, and then because I had those two very distinct kind of separate friendship groups, I did like really good numbers. Then I became a host, where they give you a guest list and drink cards to look after people and stuff.
Yep.
And then from there, because I was doing really well at Metro or whatever, I got asked to co-run their like end of exam party, or I think it was VC results or something like that. It was on a particular day where results came out. So I was just finished year 12, and then that was kind of the biggest thing I sort of did. And then I think 4 months later or something, when the new year was starting, got asked to be part of a committee to run a night. So I was running nights for a while, but at that stage, it was like you had a marketing manager who was basically doing it all, and they were making you think you were doing something, but you were just responsible for having hosts and bringing people. But in terms of the creative process and getting artwork done and sourcing sponsors and all that kind of stuff, you didn't have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to be part of those committees. Like, I actually want to learn shit and learn the back end. So I left a very successful night to take another one where I had more responsibility and all this kind of stuff, which went okay, but monetarily I would have been better off staying where I was.
Those nights when you can get like $2 a head and you're doing big numbers, you can make some good money.
100%, and especially when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, like you can work at a supermarket or work retail or something, but if you get on a winner with like one of those, you can actually do pretty well. But yeah, so I kind of moved up from doing that to then running nights to then I was basically running nights, and then it got to the point I'd just come back from overseas or something, and spent a bunch of money, and I was like, shit, don't have any cash. It's like, and I kind of got shafted from one of the venues I was running.
You can't take holidays back then, man.
Yeah,
whether you're a DJ, whether you're a promoter, if you go,
Yeah.
someone will jump into your spot pretty quickly.
Pretty much, yeah. And then I remember I came back, and going back to the SMS stuff, there was a company that was like right on the cutting edge of introducing that. And they basically offered me a job because they kind of heard about me somehow. And this guy was like, and I'd used him to do SMS, and he was like, oh, hey, do you want to have lunch? I was
You
like,
do the bulk SMS.
yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go have lunch. And yeah, he offered me a job saying, I'm looking for a sales guy / account manager to try and get into all these hospo venues. And back then, the hospo scene was a lot smaller, so you kind of did know everyone. But I was like, okay, I can get into that, but I don't want to like leave the club scene completely, and I want to have a fallback kind of thing. And it just so happened that Metro was launching a new night, and one of the guys suggested me as the door guy because I had a mouth on me, I suppose, and and knew a lot of people. So they actually paid for me to get my security license.
Yeah, wow.
And so the first night I ever worked door was the opening night of a night called Boom Boom Room at the Metro, and it was something like 3,500 people. The first night I'd ever done door, ever checked an ID, fucking anything. Yeah. So once I got through that, I was like, I got this. So went from there to then doing the door at 7, motel, Cuba, a whole bunch of places. And that was while I was working for this SMS company. So like, I was doing that during the day, the office job, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was doing door. And then it got to a point I just got really over that. And then one of the bosses pissed me off one day, and I was just like, F you, I quit. But I did have a night. I was launching at 7. So that was my, I was going to try and do both, but I was just like, screw this. And ditched that, got back into the club scene. And then from there, marketing manager. So went from running nights to then being marketing manager of venues, which I did for years. And it kind of, I don't know, it's one of those things where when it's good, it's good. You're playing with big budgets, owners trust you, you're doing good numbers, you're conceptualizing events and promotions, and then 3 months later, like, you're seeing it in front of you, and like that's a satisfying feeling. When you've got this kind of event that you thought of in your head, and then you made all of it come together, and you see people loving it, and you're like, holy shit, like, that's fun. I like that.
The flip side is when you're standing in an empty room going, hopefully people turn up soon.
Yeah, well, the flip side is, depending on who you work for, like, there's a lot of venues where owners just think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? So you can have great marketing and whatever, but, if you've got shit bartenders, a shit venue, you're not paying your bills, you're not paying your suppliers, or, you don't give a shit and there's broken glass everywhere and a bus is not picking it up. Like, there are so many different things.
Trickle-down effect, yeah.
Yeah, there are so many moving parts to make a successful night, let alone a successful venue, And if you're a marketing manager, a lot of that responsibility when it's not busy, the owner just goes, well, it's you. And it's like, well, it's not. Like, we've done our part. We've, done successful opening nights or, done launches or whatever, but people don't want to come back because of the offering and because of the stuff I'm not responsible for.
Yeah. It's the old thing, though, that people will go to a launch and then, it's anyone can have a big launch.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 3 weeks later.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what everyone's like, yeah, we had 2,000 people to a launch. How many people are you going to have?
How many were there on the third week?
That's the one, right?
100%. So, yeah, I kind of was doing that and, got a bit jaded with doing that. And then I went and ended up kind of, I wouldn't say taking that role, but a similar role at a place called 24 Moons in Northcote. But that was like as a booking thing. So they're a big venue. It was sold to me as a bar because 24 Moons used to be an AC/DC lane, which was like a smaller kind of probably 200-person bar. And one of the old partners was like, oh, you got to check out my new bar in Northcote. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I went out there for a meeting and I walked into this fucking cavernous like nightclub that could hold 500 people, and I was like, "Fam, this isn't a bar." Like, and so that was a lot more gratifying because you were hitting up different promoters and like booking events in and all that kind of stuff. So the pressure wasn't really on to bring numbers yourself. The pressure was on to fill the calendar. You know what I mean?
But then there's another set of stress where you have to make sure that those people are then pulling the numbers. You know what I mean? So you put yourself into a different stress sort of area.
Yeah, there's definitely different considerations, but a lot of venues were dropping off as well in terms of the smaller ones kind of thing. And 24 Moons was, I don't know, anywhere from 300 to kind of 500 turnover. So as long as you got the good promoters and, you treated them well and everything like that, like there's not that many venues around. Like there's a few more now, like Hal has started doing, bigger stuff and whatever else. But yeah, that was a lot easier than when, the owner's like, why aren't we making money? Where's the people kind of thing?
Yeah, well, like it's all sort of changed a bit now, but back in the earlier days, 20, 30 years ago, the owners of a lot of nightclubs were like, you'd imagine them, they were kind of like angry ethnic guys that would be pissed off. They'd be happy with you one week, and the next week they'd be like, "This is shit," and you're done.
Yeah, and I mean the difference was as well back then. The owners were usually still taking the door and still paying all the DJs and entertainment and door staff and all that kind of thing. And as kind of venue loyalty dropped off, that's when promoters kind of started coming in, and they were taking the door, they were taking the risk, they were paying entertainment, they were paying marketing.
But then again, it opens up a whole new thing because then you've got the owners going, listen, we're making nothing over the bar because we're doing $3 beers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you guys are taking all the door and then they're going to there's a whole...
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been stages, I suppose, in the Melbourne, thing where, owners used to have all the power, and then went back to promoters, and then probably mid-2000s, when Electro House was going crazy, then DJs had the power. You could book certain big-name DJs and there'd be 800, 1,000 people turn up to see them,
Yeah, and that was just before social media really took off. So I feel like they still had the power then,
I think that was like kind of mid-2000s was probably that MySpace kind of thing where it just started.
Yeah.
And I think that's when, I remember when we were going back to the scene, when it was very underground before being, sort of mainstream commercialised or whatever. I remember we were doing club nights and sitting there with, business partners just going, fuck, I wish this was more mainstream. We'd be cleaning up, you know what I mean? Mm. And then around that, I think it was 2003 or 4 or something like
Ministry
that.
of Sound.
Ministry of Sound, One Love, social media like MySpace and stuff. But, you had brands like Motorola were using electro house tracks on their advertisements on TV. But then you also had fashion. People started caring about fashion more as well.
Yep.
Don't get me started on the fluoro era, but
that was and One Love smashed that out of the park for quite a while. They were at the Prince of Wales every Saturday. They had the aesthetic down. You look at the first couple of One Love albums and the way they did the artwork, and they smashed that early kind of cool electro house thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And then it was everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just from the people behind that are also, very
it wasn't
good,
an accident.
Very good graphic artists and very good branding dudes, and they know what they're doing. But yeah, that was that point in time where I think, new media with social media stuff, fashion, that particular style of music, it all just kind of hit right at once. And that is when it went from being a subculture, like the whole dance music thing, whether it be urban, techno, trance, whatever, but the whole, kind of dance music scene, that's when it became mainstream. And then after that, kids that were going to the pub to see bands, that's man, they're going straight to a nightclub when they turn 18.
Sure. And that's definitely the way it happened. For a while, when, the early days, of my going out lifestyle, going to see you at 7 and whatever, you would listen to records there that people were only playing bootlegs of house music and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you'd get in the Uber, or taxi back then, and all of a sudden it's on the radio. Pretty quickly that changed.
Yeah.
From you'd only hear it at nightclubs to it was on the radio on the way to the nightclub.
Yeah. I mean, another thing I should mention, though, is MP3s, because that was the same time as all that was happening as well. Get a virus with every 3 songs illegally downloaded. But, all of that happened at once. So it was this 2 to 3 year period where shit just completely changed.
Mm. And because when you were working at 7 at that period, that was, I guess it really showed the diversity of a nightclub and how they could have different nights. Because Thursday night, you would have your uni night, which sort of was a lot of that sort of inner city kids. Friday night, I think you had Earthcore night. Saturday night was your mainstream night. Sunday night was an Asian night. They just turn them over.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of venues did that, they could be...
Not a lot of them did it well.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot to juggle.
Yeah. But if you look at somewhere like Chasers, in the 90s, they were doing Hard and Fast on Wednesday, Thursday,
which was the alternative night.
Yeah, alternative hard rock, whatever. Thursday, I think, was kind of a uni night. Friday was a urban night, which was either bump and grind or something else. Saturday, I think, was Hysteria, which was a mainstream kind of dance music, house, whatever, but with a bit of that joy flavour, Italian, Mediterranean kind of crew. And then Sunday was Delirium, which was a retro night. And they had 5 nights a week, which were all very, very different, but all super freaking busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, yeah, Seven had a lot going on back then. Like, it was one of the hottest clubs in Melbourne.
For a while,
And, you know, now it's kind of not doing much. It was in the wrong place. You know, it was in South Melbourne and there's no foot traffic and
but then
things change.
People started to build apartments around them. Like in the
That's
early
also
days,
very
there
true.
was a few apartments, but it was very much the industrial part of South Melbourne.
Yeah.
You know,
And now
opposite-
it's right in the midst of it all.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that happens way too often. And we've lost so many freaking venues because of that.
Yeah.
You know, and you see it in the media, but not as much as you should, where, you know, neighbours are making a noise complaint and the council's taking it seriously. And it's like, well, that pub's been there for 100 years. You moved in 2 weeks ago. And, you know, it might be one objection to like a pub, you know, going from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. or putting seating outside or, you know, something like that. There's so many like letter writers out there that would just get their back up about anything.
For sure.
But, you know, Melbourne's lost so many really good venues, especially in the live music space.
100%, man. And like, I lived in St Kilda for most of my life. I got mature, had a kid. I didn't start to argue and tell people to change the area. I moved out of the area because I was too
I don't
old
like
for it.
this, I'm going.
Yeah, but the people that are in those areas, they mature because I guarantee you, they move to St Kilda, they move to Fitzroy, they move to Collingwood because they like the colourfulness of the neighbourhood. Then when they get to an age where they don't like it, they expect the neighbourhood to change.
100%.
Like,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? No. And yeah, I mean, there's we've lost a heap of venues in the sort of, you know, clubbing space and whatever. And I mean, there's more bars per capita now than God knows. Like, you know, every second day there's a new bar popping up, whether they do well or not. But just in that kind of pub, band, live music space, like over the last 10 years we've lost a lot. And then obviously COVID pushed a lot to the wall and everything like that. So,
But it's cool to see places like what was the Punters Club became Bimbo. AVC took it over. Now it's going to go back to the Punters Club.
Yeah.
I like to think that hopefully that's a trend to show that pubby pubs are coming back. Because we had this fucking period where everything became clinically white, gastro pub. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you want to go to a pub just to go to a fucking pub.
Yeah, you want to walk on the sticky carpet, and as your foot goes like that, like, you know, you're feeling some history there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that comes down to, at the moment, you know, the cost of living and stuff like that. Like, you're going to a bar and paying $14 for a basic spirit, and that might be after paying $25 for entry or, you know, whatever to a club.
Yeah.
Like, I think pubs are, you know, that real leveler sort of thing. So I think people are going back to local pubs and, you know, going on a steak night and having a couple of pints. You know, that's a $50, $60 night instead of a $200 night. So,
But to break it down, people will pay if the product's good.
yeah.
Now, you just said $25 entry. Like, I think that One Love was $25 entry 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, people were paying that, which now would be the equivalent of like $100.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's paying that, though.
No, but that's the funny thing. Like, people, it's changed the way that what people would pay for certain things.
Yeah.
You know, and at that same sort of period of time, on a Thursday, you'd be getting, if you got there by 10 o'clock, you might get $2 spirits or some shit.
Yeah, and get him for free.
And get it for free if you went to 7 on those uni nights. So it shows how stuff's changed. But kids, I just don't think can justify or have the funds to pay the kind of money that it would cost to go out and do that sort of stuff again.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's why I think pubs are coming back, because people can do it once or twice a week.
Yeah. And have a meal and have a couple of beers. They don't have to be there all night and commit to spending $300.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think people can afford, like, you know, going out to a restaurant, having dinner, then going to a bar, having a cocktail, then going to a club. Like, that's an expensive night, you know. Yeah. And where I work at the moment in the city, like, we can sometimes be kind of quiet until 9 o'clock or something, and then between 9 and 10:30, like, all these kids just come from everywhere. And, like, you know, somewhere's doing a happy hour or they're pre-drinking or something. And also the difference between Saturday night and Friday night is, like, crazy. Like, they used to be pretty comparable, you know, like, you know, almost as busy as each other. And now Saturday is, like, the one night people can afford to go out.
Yeah. But It used to be, I feel like, there was obviously uni nights and your specials for kids.
Yeah.
But you would never find a happy hour on Chapel Street 20 years ago. Now
Yeah.
people go, what's your happy hour? Like, I'll see them at bars. I'll walk in, what's your happy hour? Like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, well, let's just go to the next place. That wasn't really happening. Now people are being a lot more fickle with their coin.
100%. Like, yeah, they're like, why would I go to you? You're charging full price drinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, people just don't have that amount of money. And there's also so much freaking competition. You know,
But it seems like a lot of shut down. So is there more opening up? Like, I don't know.
well, I mean, there aren't too many, as far as I know, there aren't too many new liquor licenses getting granted. It's just the same premises that, you know, one business will fail, someone else will buy it, like relaunch it under a different name.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are staying in the same premises because they're inheriting the liquor license.
But that is because you're talking from an inner city point of view because that's where you're at.
Yeah.
But like somewhere like Frankston City Council, like I know they are granting more. They want people to go out there. They want to do more stuff,
Yeah, right.
which is totally different to the city of Yarra, Stonington, Port Phillip, who are like, nah,
Yeah.
you guys are going. If you're going from 1 o'clock, you're going to 11 o'clock. You're not going to 3. Where here, I think it's happening a little bit more.
Yeah,
because
right.
they want to push people to spend money within the community.
Yeah.
Which is just a bit different from different areas.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I do very much see it from that inner city thing because, you know, I used to work in Northcote, as I said, at 24 Moons, but now I'm like strictly the real inner city and everything like that. And yeah, you'll see, you know, so-and-so bar opening and you're like, what? Look at the address, Google the address, and then you see the old name and you're like, oh, okay, it's that place, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would expect that, yeah, places like Frankston or, you know, Ballarat or, you know, even hour out of town kind of thing, they're probably wanting to provide more stuff for encourage people to move down there. I guess.
No, it's a spin out because when I lived in the city for so long, moving to talking to people that own hospitality venues in other places, and they're like, "Yeah, this is our license for now. We're going to get it extended." And I just came from that same thing. I'm like, "No one gets a license."
No, you're not.
And then, but I'm saying that people are because I just had that inner city mentality.
Yeah.
It is different out.
I mean, it did happen. I think it was just after COVID where if you're in the Melbourne CBD, your license automatically got extended to 1, like because most restaurants had 11 o'clock and some bars or whatever. And there was a period where everyone was licensed till 1 just because they were trying to encourage people to get back into the city. But I don't know if that's still a thing. I wouldn't imagine so. Imagine it's probably been peeled back.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go from a 1 a.m. to a 3 a.m. or a 3 a.m. to a 5 a.m. like
it just doesn't happen anymore.
yeah, it's like a hard ask.
Do you have that thing in your head where you said like venues change names and they change entities, but I've got it like in my head that it was when I was first that age. That's what it's sort of always going to be to me. Like it's not. You can change it. I'm going to still always call it that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, there's places that have changed names 8 times, and you're still like calling it what it was in '95.
Yeah,
or
people
something.
are like it's called this now, and I'm like, nah, it's always going to be fucking whatever that was at that
Yeah.
period of time.
It's like going back to what you were talking about. Was it Cupie? Everyone's like the old bimbos.
Bimbo,
No one
yeah.
called it Cupie. Everyone was like the old bimbos.
And for a while, I was DJing there for a while, but there was people that were calling it the Punters Club.
Yeah,
still.
the old-
So you just
Yeah.
and now it's gone full circle.
Yeah, so is it back to the Punters Club? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's I don't know when it opens, but it has. So AVC have sold that one. That's another one that's changing hands.
There you go. I think we were just talking about venues and stuff.
Well, that's pretty much what the whole thing's going to be, I think. But
Well-
no, we can talk about.
Well, there's more, you know.
What about
There's levels.
What about? You mentioned the basketball thing. Was that something that you took seriously?
It was when I was young. I suppose, you know, like I used to play in the HBA, which was the Hawthorn Basketball Association, whatever. And so, you know, if you're good enough in that competition, they'll pick you for the rep side. And so up till probably under 18s, I took it pretty seriously. And then, you know, when you're playing like tournaments and playing against the bigger teams, like or the bigger clubs, like, you know, Bulleen and Eltham or whatever, and you're coming up against state players who are 17 years old and 6'5", you know, then you're like, yeah, I don't know if this is going anywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was this very insular thing of, you know, within Hawthorn, it was kind of like you were somebody or whatever. But then on the bigger stage, you're like, whoa, I'm probably a little bit out of my depth here. So after probably under 18s, like I played, you know, like VBA kind of stuff, which was midweek, I think. But that was more to a social point just because I'd played basketball all my life. So when I was 18, 19, kind of. I kept going.
Yep.
But then, once I reached 18, 19, it's like there were other priorities, working in clubs and not being able to go to training, at whatever time in the morning or, whatever. So priorities definitely changed, but getting cooked a few times on the basketball court by dudes a lot better and a lot bigger than you will give you a bit of a wake-up call. So,
Man, I played rep basketball for a while as well in the junior days. I got told that the Friday night thing was a strategic move to try and keep kids from going out on the weekends, and that's why they did it. And then
I reckon that's a bit of a conspiracy theory.
You reckon?
Yeah.
You think so?
No way. I think just Friday night is, especially when you're under 18, like you're not going out. And so, parents can drive you to games. Like, if you played for Sandringham and you had to go all the way out to Eltham or Diamond Valley, like I think Friday nights would do it. Like parents are going to be a bit pissed off if you ask them to do it on a Saturday night or something.
Then you've got to play domestic Saturday and go drive somewhere else as well.
Well, domestic's usually local, so...
I had to go to play Nuttawading for domestic. I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah, that's crazy talk. I've got no idea. But up until like 18, during high school and all that kind of thing, like, took it pretty seriously. But after that, I was never going anywhere with it. It was just how to stay in touch with friends and, love the sport. Still do, as you know, from my tweet booking and stuff.
Yes, big game.
Tonight.
Tonight, which when this comes out next week, it would have already happened.
Yes.
But we obviously win.
Fucking hope so. Yeah, us against Serbia. We beat them in the warm-ups, so that's a promising sign.
The thing is with the Boomers, man, is that obviously the USA is an amazing opponent, and you obviously respect all your opponents, but I feel like on any given day, we could actually win.
Yeah.
Against any competitor.
Yeah, we beat them in the warm-up to, what was it? Tokyo or the one before that? Like when we played the 2 exhibition games at Marvel.
Yeah.
And like we beat them then, which was the first time, even though it wasn't a competitive game. They weren't
stacked as much as now.
Yeah, that team wasn't. The US team always sends better teams to the Olympics than they do the World Cup.
Yep.
And yeah, they always, like the Olympics, I don't think they've lost for ages. And since they got beaten by Argentina, I think, which was 2004, I think.
The Greek one, was it Greece? 2008 or 2004, yeah, one of those.
Beijing was 2008, I think.
So Greece 2004.
Yeah, that's the last time they lost, which Argentina won. But they've had some bad results in the World Cup because they don't take it seriously and send other teams and whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's the same problem. Like, if you look at the Spanish team with the Gasols and Rudy Fernandez and Juan Carlos Navarro or whatever is that? I don't know. But they played together for years, like 10 years kind of thing.
But people also forget that the rules are tilted more to the European and Australian style of basketball generally, with the FIBA rules, with the defense rules, with the size of the court, with where the three-point line is, with a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's all changed. It's all stuff the Americans can overcome. But I think it does come down to chemistry. And I think there are, like, especially European teams that have been together for freaking years. And they, play tournaments together. They play the Euro Cup as well. So they have, other training camps and other competitions. So, they're a lot more familiar with each other, whereas the US are getting together kind of like an all-NBA team or all-star team or whatever and go to training camp for 2 weeks and then off to a tournament. So I think that's their main weakness is just like the gelling and knowing each other's games because it's different playing against people and watching people than playing with people.
The way that the NBA All-Star games have sort of fallen off, I think, doesn't work in their favour either because they're not used to playing in that sort of, just thrown together with a bunch of dudes. They're not like...
There's no incentive there as well. It's like if you go, you go too hard, you could get injured, and there's like hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the issues they have with the World Cup is America doesn't look at the World Cup like the rest of the world does. Like the rest of the world looks at the basketball World Cup like the soccer World Cup, whereas the Americans like the gold medal is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of European countries like the gold medal and the world crown is like on similar.
Yeah. Well, I think so, because in a game like basketball, if you get the chance to beat the USA in any capacity, you're going to hang your hat on it.
You're happy. Exactly.
For sure.
But yeah, it's been good, especially, like the NBA now, I think it's got over 100, non-US born players.
This year, there was, in the top 10, there was like 4 or 5, I think.
Well, yeah, it'd be like, Giannis, Luka, Djokic. Like, yeah, the world's definitely catching up, and the Europeans are a lot more skillful, whereas Americans grow up playing AAU and rely on their athleticism a lot more and stuff like that. So different games. So I think the Olympics and the World Cup definitely suit European teams better. And as you said, the rules as well.
The rules. But what a time to be interested in Aussie hoops, not only from an international perspective like that, we've always got people playing. You can put on the NBA for people like you and I that probably don't work 9 to 5 jobs.
Yeah.
Any Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, and you can probably find somebody who's Australian playing. But also the domestic league's fucking strong too, with a lot of people that are coming here and then going to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, man, the NBL has like just completely done a 180. You know, like mid-90s, that whole what was it, Magic? It was North Melbourne and the Tigers, or Magic and the Tigers? Like
Tigers, Magic, and then the Giants were there as well across.
Well, they came part of Southeast Melbourne or something. I can't remember. There were so many mergers back then. But I remember going to games, you know, that were 15,000 people at Rod Laver or Melbourne Park or whatever it was.
Flinders Park.
And, you know, then it, you know, really dropped off and teams folding or whatever. And was it Larry Kellerman? Is that his name? The new CEO.
The money man.
Like he knows what he's doing. And that Next Stars thing, like there's something like 6 or 7 ex-NBA players that are part owners of NBL clubs now.
Mello's about to be one.
Yep. Mello with the expansion team. It's like Kevin Martin, Zach Randolph. Like there's a whole bunch of ex-NBA dudes that are involved. And whether they're hands-on or not, they've at least got experience. And when they're going to sign that contract to become an owner, they're going to impart some knowledge about how the NBA runs.
Yep.
So the NBL's become a lot more professional, a lot more competitive, you know, with their development players and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's cool just watching, like, the draft and them referencing the NBL and, like, well, this guy is going to do well because he put in some work at the Wildcats, and you're like, this is cool because on a global scale, people are taking it seriously that go to Australia for a year or two, and that might help your chances going somewhere else.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was never happening 20 years ago.
No way. and even with, you know, there's exhibition games we were playing where NBL clubs will play NBA teams, and like the 36ers knocked off someone and whatever. But yeah, so people, you know, they know Australian players now, but they know the league now, which has definitely changed.
Yeah.
And it's good for Australian basketball, obviously.
For sure. And the women too, they got out of the group.
Yep. Kicking ass. Lauren Jackson, my God, coming back.
How old should be? 45? Well, she's got to be...
I don't know, to tell you the truth, but I think it's like her 4th or 5th Olympics or something. But she's still kicking ass. Like
there's girls on that team that were born the same year that she played her first Olympics. It's her 5th Olympics. That's crazy.
I mean, you could argue she's Australia's best basketball player, you know, because she's got MVPs, you know, and on the male side, you've probably got Andrew Gaze as a local player.
He's got a ring. He's got a championship ring.
Well, he didn't get many minutes.
He's got a ring.
But yeah, you know, the Australian women, like they've, you know, medalled, you know, multiple times, and it's taken a while for the men to catch up on a global scale, you know.
Luke Longley's got 3 rings.
That's true. He did good work, very good passing big man.
Yeah. With here's a poor segue crossover here from the urban nightclub scene. You would have seen a fair few basketballers or people. The imports probably would have been coming to a few of those nights.
100%. You would see them out like all nights before games, the whole bit. Yeah, like at all those clubs. Like a lot of those guys were friends, especially the imports and everything like that. So, you know, if there was a game where, you know, Brisbane was playing Melbourne, then whichever imports were on the Tigers or whatever were taking the guys. It was like, this is the spot, go there. Obviously getting the hook up and, you know, getting drink cards and whatever, and getting showed a very good time. So
for sure.
But, you know, they were, I don't know, they were always like really chill, and, you know, back then it was that 90s, mid-90s, you know, aesthetic where everyone was like suited up at these clubs, everything like that. So all the ballers would just be sitting there with, you know, expensive scotch and whatever. Like they weren't smashing shots, they weren't drinking beers. Like they were pretty, you know, serious about being athletes, and also being an import, you could get cut at any time as well.
Yeah.
So that was a very different thing to AFL footballers getting out on the weekend and getting on it. You know, it's
no camera phones then, which probably was it. Yeah.
That probably also helped. Yeah, but they were all super chill, super polite, and very well behaved for the most part. Whereas, being local, I suppose, with the AFL footy players, it's just like you probably feel a bit safer and know more people and whatever. So yeah, different level of partying, I think.
For sure. And you're wearing the Section 8 hoodie there, so you've been you've been running your Monday nights there for a while and been working with them on all sorts of levels for a long time.
Yeah,
one of Melbourne's coolest venues, I reckon.
100%. That is my home ground and my favourite venue. I don't even know when. I mean, that opened in 2006, and I think. I remember going there not long after it opened and then getting to know a few people and whatever. But then, I don't know, all of a sudden I was just there all the time. And then, had some DJs play there and then had Battle 8 there as well, which is almost 10 years ago now, 8.5 years ago or something. Now I run once every month on a Thursday, which is my night, Forth and Back, which is 100% Phat. So it's basically my DJs from my agency plus one guest every week.
Yep.
So that's all year round. And then, during the summer when daylight savings on, there's a bit of light. I host the Players Club, which is the basketball shootout, which is awesome fun, but also very humbling for some people because the ring's 11 foot. It's on a bit of a slope on a laneway. So you get people that actually play ball that go there and just absolutely suck. Because they're so used to playing on a regulation ring and all this kind of stuff.
Is it 11 foot so people don't hang off it? Why is it 11 foot?
100%. Yeah. Because it's on a wall.
Jump off the wall.
So when it was 10 foot, people run off the wall and dunk and rip it off, and then it became that much higher, that much higher, that much higher.
Yep.
And now it's 11 foot, and we've got an anti-grab ring, so it's got a little lip on top of it.
So yeah.
That's awesome fun. They've got different crews that DJ and stuff like that. Steve Kirby, who we've had on here, who owns Wanderer, he provides prizes every year.
Yep.
So you have a whole bunch of regulars, but then you'll just get, random people down from interstate for the weekend who stumble upon it and go, what, there's basketball competition? What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, people just freaking love it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, people have a go and then they're like, oh, no, not for me. But then an hour later, they've had a couple of shots of their mates or whatever. They're like, oh, yeah, I can kick ass. And then they still suck. But it's good fun.
Yeah.
And they basically, pay me to host and kind of trash talk and stuff like that. So
that's what it's all about.
Exactly. Good times.
I remember going there when it first opened as well and thinking, fuck, this is so cool, but how long can this last, the way that Section 8 is?
Yeah.
But, man, 18 years later, it's still there.
100%. I mean, I don't know the exact story, but from what I heard, Maz, and I think he might have had a business partner at the time, I'm not sure. They stumbled upon it and, offered to hire it for a summer or something like that as a pop-up. And I don't know, because it was Tattersalls Lane's one way as well. You've got to come from Chinatown. You can't go from Lonsdale Street.
Yep.
And so I think that if it was a functioning car park, it only would have been servicing shops on Swanson Street, because they got back entrances and stuff.
You can also drive sort of through in the back, and that kind of helps where the entrance comes on as well,
Yeah, but I don't know. I imagine that they just kind of figured out that getting rent from this guy was probably a lot less hassle than paying someone to collect parking tickets, or I don't know, because 18 years later. Yeah. One of their taglines is the pop-up bar that will never die or something like that. It's it's freaking true.
It is. And do you know what? It hasn't, I think the toilets are a bit different, but it hasn't really changed much at all.
It's mostly when they first started, it was the shipping container for the bar and the shipping container for the toilets. But then all the tables were old, 10-gallon drums or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there was I think umbrellas over them. And that was it. There wasn't a roof back then.
Yeah.
And so then, a bit of roofing came on, and then it's slowly evolved over the years. Mm-hmm. But now it's all guns blazing, 365 days a year it's open, and generally pretty busy most of those.
Yep.
And it's one of those venues that actually books on talent. It's not booking people because they're going to bring 100 guests or something. They've got the most diverse, most inclusive DJ booking I've ever seen, or even event booking, because they don't really book DJs, they book people to do events.
And you can hear all sorts of different music, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might hear hip-hop one night, Afrobeat the next night, you'll hear techno one night. Like, you never know what you're in for.
Yeah, drum and bass, like whatever. Yeah. But it's one of the few venues in Melbourne that like just books on DJ talent and what people play. Like Revolver's probably another one, but there are very few venues still around that like that's their number one motivation because they know they're going to be busy. You know, like Section 8's always busy. That's
the thing. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you've got a venue that is already strong, has a great, with 18 years, or Revolver's obviously got a bit longer than that, you know, behind it, where people can go, yep, that's cool, we're going to go there. And then you can have the artistic license to let the right people pick the music.
Yeah.
If you had a brand new venue out of there, MJ's bar, you know what I mean?
Well,
it'd be hard.
It would be 100% be hard unless, you know, you open somewhere really fucking cool. You know, like in a car park or on the top of a building or, you know, something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to have the right venue to be able to get away with it. But they're so ingrained now that, you know, it's always going to be busy. And like, you can fill that place just with regulars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you go there on a Thursday night or a Tuesday night or whatever, like there's probably a good 20, 30 people there that are there like 4 or 5 times a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then, you know, it's on a whole bunch of timeout lists as well. Like, you know, timeout Taiwan or something. Like if they do an article on best things to do in Melbourne, Section 8's on it, you know? And so, yeah, you'll go there, like on a Monday is a perfect example. And there'll be, you know, the core group of regular dudes, but then there's the, you know, 8 Japanese B-boys and B-girls over there. There's like some dudes speaking French over there. There's a bunch of Korean crew there. There's a South Americans. Like, and so when you first get to Melbourne, it's like a real place where you can go and connect with people.
Yep.
And there are so many people I know that have moved from either interstate or overseas, and most of their friendship group is made up of Section 8 crew or people they've met, you know, because everyone's super friendly. You're all like into the same music and whatever. So yeah, it's a real mixing pot of like just all these different cultures and everything, but united by the music, I guess.
Yeah, and just a cool spot to hang out and have a beer.
True that.
I remember when I first went there, it was one of the first places that I experienced that I really kind of liked, that it had a no ties policy, which I think helped the longevity of the whole thing.
100%. I mean, is
that still going?
Yeah. And I mean, it's very self-regulating as well, because I mean, I've been there on nights where you'll see a bunch of suits who have, you know, finished work, or they might not be in suits because it might be casual Friday or whatever.
Don't wear your tie, we're going to Section 8.
Yeah, but there's you know, one dude who's like in the know, who's like, I know this really freaking cool spot, we'll go there and have a drink. And they bring their corporate mates there, and then the corporate mates are like, I'm not sitting on those wooden pallets with chewing gum stuck under it, and, you know, I'm not going to those toilets. And they'll walk out. And so it's like self-regulating like that. Like if you get Section 8, like you'll be welcome and you'll find your people. But if you're not digging the vibe or you think it's too like ghetto or whatever, then you're not going to go back there. So it's very self-regulating.
For sure. And I guess people feel comfortable when they're there, and they feel comfortable around people that aren't wearing suits, which I kind of do myself.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of places in the city you can go wear your suit.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, they've got great door staff, great bartenders, you know, and you can go there by yourself. Like, there's a lot of people that do. Like, I do that all the time. Like, before I go to work, I'll go past and say hi to the crew. And there's a bunch of people I know that go by themselves. And, you know, they'll bring their dog there, they'll have a couple of beers, read a book, you know. And then people walk in and just be like, hey, you know, So it's one of those places you can kind of go by yourself and not feel uncomfortable. Because there's so much movement with, you know, DJs and people walking the bar, people, you know, coming in and out, people going to the bathroom, whatever. So yeah, it's definitely like one of those spots where, you know, once you kind of get there, get it, meet a few people, like, why go anywhere else?
Sure. And anyone who's not from Melbourne that hasn't been to Section 8, when you come to Melbourne, you've got to go, man.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Definitely worth a check.
Yeah, don't wear your suit.
No.
You mentioned your DJ crew, which we haven't got to yet, but you do 100% Phat is your collective, it's your brand, it's your agency.
Yeah.
What is it? Explain to people that don't know.
So 100% Phat is the business. It's had a few itinerations, I guess. Like, it was the name I used to run events under. So after kind of being marketing manager at a few venues or whatever, I think it was either Flagrant or Nick Taylor was the first person that I kind of was booking. And I didn't even think about it, but I think it was either Flago or Agent 86. Nick was looking for an agent, and they were like, oh, speak to MJ. He knows everyone like in the scene, like as in bar owners and DJs and touring agents and this, that, and the other. And I hadn't really thought about it. And so I'm pretty sure it was Nick. And Nick approached me and I was like, shit, yeah, I could do that. I know pretty much someone at every venue. And this wasn't long after coming out of that corporate world where I was dealing with all these venues with the SMS shit as well. So basically, that was a bit of an afterthought, but 100% Phat was running events, pretty much. And then I used to do a bit of touring and stuff like that as well. And then, it went really well with Nick. Like, it got to a point where, we had, I think, like an exclusive deal with a venue in Hobart, one in Adelaide, one in Perth, whatever. He was playing festivals here. And then I think either Flagrant or Agent 86 saw how well I was going with that and didn't like their agents. And then they asked me. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, where it morphed into a DJ agency from an events company.
Which is a bit of a natural progression.
Yeah. I mean, it's, because as I said, like, I kind of aged out and everything, so I stopped doing as many events. I'd pick and choose the stuff I was doing. And so I was probably more happy being in the background. So, doing that kind of agency stuff, hustling gigs and, getting people on big festival lineups or international supports or whatever. And so they get all the love, but it's you behind the scene kind of doing it all, which is obviously a pretty satisfying feeling when you get a good gig.
Yeah.
And then, so it just kind of got bigger and bigger, and, I've looked after a whole bunch of different DJs over the years. Some have come, some have gone, some have moved overseas. And then from there, I think Blue Bar was the first one that, I think it was Saturday night, Tom Showtime, who's one of the guys on 100% Phat. He was mates with the old manager, which is pre-Darcy days. I think it was Matt Sanger. And
who was still there basically to the end of that whole company.
In the background, yeah. And I think that was the first venue where Tom was mates with him, he was DJing, and they kind of wanted to do like a new funk hip-hop night or whatever. And so Matt was like, can you do the bookings? Because you've got some other DJs on your agency that would be suitable. And so then, started doing that on the Saturday night. And then I think he left, Darcy took over and was like, yep, keep doing your DJs. And then that was like, Sizzle, Rui, Flagrant, a whole bunch of people. And then, I think another venue, it was a similar thing where they had one of my DJs and then someone couldn't play. I gave them someone else and they were like, this DJ is better than fucking anyone else we're booking. Do you want to do the DJ bookings?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, all right.
It's like anything in that industry, though. It's being reliable and consistent, which will get you the work. And the fact that a lot of DJs are unreliable. Not to say that your DJs aren't the best, but they're great.
Yeah.
But if they don't, if one of them can't come for whatever reason, you've got the ability to get someone else there, and there's never going to be any dead time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think venues appreciate that because they don't have the time, or maybe the connects to hustle and get a replacement DJ if someone has a car accident on the way to work, or they've got a family emergency or something like that. So when they're outsourcing it, they don't really have to worry about it. It's on you as the booker to kind of replace it. So
sometimes there's some weekends with some stressful time. You're having dinner and this guy can't turn up. I've got to do that. Yeah. That's all part and parcel of it.
It is. I mean, I've changed it now where like everyone gets their bookings, which I send out, but literally on the day of, I message every DJ going, don't forget you've got here tonight, this time to this time, like just to cover my ass in case someone has forgot it or it's been deleted from their calendar somehow or something like that,
or they're hungover from the day before.
Yeah, they'll usually get at me first and just be like, can you get me a cover tonight? I'm fucking dying. But so it's sort of morphed from events and touring to then the DJ agency, which was just the guys I'd signed who I'd hustle gigs for, to then now entertainment booking for different venues. So there are some, like Blue Bar and a couple of like restaurants and bars or whatever that I pretty much exclusively book my guys because they're that kind of hip hop, jazzy hip hop, soul, funk, Afrobeat, whatever. So they very much fit there. But then there's other places that are super, super commercial venues that my guys don't suit and don't want to do it. So I think last financial year I gave 108 different DJs work.
Yeah, wow.
Across a whole bunch of different venues. So if you're reliable, if you're organised and you can stay ahead of it, it's turned out to be, I won't say, a massive money spinner, but it's good to have, different things, I suppose, different revenue streams. And, if one thing goes south, you can kind of lean on another side of it a bit more. So
that is one thing that with that sort of industry in the way that you're in it, like obviously COVID plays a huge part, but you don't have the overheads that a lot of the venues have. And I guess
we were chatting about that before.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, I've seen people make a shitload of money having owned venues, but I've also seen people turn bankrupt, It's an industry where, you can really do really well, but it's also, a place where you can lose your house.
Yeah.
Like, it really depends.
Yeah.
And, COVID sent a lot of people to the wall as well.
People with shaky hands, predominantly maybe potentially before that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, some people, though, like, especially some, like, touring people and stuff like that, they'd use profits from one tour to pay a deposit on the other. So it was very, it was all very, it was very much intertwined. So I wouldn't say it was a house of cards because they were always, liquid sort of thing. But, and especially a lot of people fell through the gaps during COVID with, government support and government payments and government grants and all this kind of stuff. So there's a few people that, were quite successful and quite prolific and like not making squillions, but they lost anywhere from 20 to 100 grand just on
lost income.
Yeah, and just deposits they paid for tours that were unrefundable. Or
one thing, I guess, one lesson, and I was lucky, my tax was in order when that happened, but a lot of people that weren't, and a lot of people in the entertainment industry, especially subcontractors, if you're just DJing making $500 here and $200 here and $300 there, you may not have had your tax in order. So that was a big wake-up call for a lot of people.
Yeah. Because I think one of the provisos was, I can't remember when it was, but because we had so many goddamn lockdowns. But one of them was if you were a sole trader, like originally if you were a sole trader, you got no support. Like you basically slipped through the gaps. But then they went, oh, no, that's legitimate. But you had to be registered for GST, which means you had to be earning over 75 grand. Yeah. So there's a bunch of artists and sculptors and DJs and this, that, and the other, like just creatives that, they might have casually worked in a cafe or something or whatever, but a cash job, so they couldn't get JobKeeper or whatever.
Yeah.
So a lot of people slept through the gaps, and and then another one was you had to have done your last year's tax return to be eligible, and so that sent a lot of people scrambling, I think, which is definitely a good thing. I've got all my stuff in order, thankfully, which took a while because lockdown was the only time I had time. But now I'm on top of things, I'm glad to say.
But I'm sure you're no stranger to a spreadsheet. When you're booking that many DJs and that many venues, I'm sure you got your spreadsheets all the way right.
I do, but I'm very bad at it. Like,
how could you be? You have to be organised.
Well, I mean, I am, but like I've seen data analysts who are spreadsheet freaks where they've got formulas that work between different pages and stuff like that. Whereas my shit's very basic and just like color coded and like columns and rows and stuff.
Show you mine; it's good.
Yeah. Having an Excel off. But yeah, so I mean now, my tax thing I've got under control, but I've got a pretty good system with my spreadsheet in terms of like, if you look across one line, you can see if the person's name comes up twice, kind of thing. So you can't really double book anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's it's a bit more labour intensive, but there's a company out there at the moment that is kind of shopping a app that kind of does something. I won't mention the name, but they've hit me up a few times, saying, "Hey, this kind of thing," and I've ran through it with the guy, and I was like, "This is literally exactly what I do. Just my shit is 10 times uglier than yours."
Okay, so this is a standalone program.
Yeah, which like they're trying to encourage venues to use. So it's kind of automated booking and automated payments and all this kind of stuff.
Is it a big company's pushing it at the moment?
They've got backing from a big company, as far as I know. But yeah, I just kind of looked at it and went, well, I don't see what you're doing that I'm not doing. Yours is a lot fancier. Mine's more labour intensive, but I'm also not paying for it. So, yeah.
How were they making money? Were they making money out of like a profit, a margin per gig?
As a client, like as an agent, you have to pay for the service, essentially. So subscription fees and stuff like that. So we were talking about that app, but, and we're old school and you've got a spreadsheet genius.
Got a guy.
Which I'm very, very jealous of, having seen what you're packing there. But yeah, I was saying just off air, we were talking about obviously the work that goes into it and everything. But you know, as I said, I've got 11 venues at the moment, a couple which are offline at the moment. Just brought another one on, and so you know, if the agency gets bigger, then you know, I might have to look at something like that.
Yeah.
But after COVID, like you know, and we were talking on the way here, a lot of people, you know, ate it or have left hospitality and moved into other industries. Like a lot of people I know, you know, kind of looked at it and they're like, why the fuck am I managing a venue till, you know, 5 a.m. in the morning making an owner money?
Yep.
You know, and hardly seeing my family or not being able to go to friends' 40ths and, you know, this, that and the other. And then a lot of people went back to, you know, what they'd studied or, you know, an art thing they were into or whatever, you know.
Yep. And
I was very fortunate in that, you know, going into COVID, like I'd finished up doing the marketing manager roles and all that kind of thing. And then after COVID, because I used to have my security license and because, you know, I'm a personal guy sort of thing, it was really weird. My skill set kind of became in demand, like where you had to be able to talk people down who might have been like, I don't have my vax certificate, fucking, you know, but I've made a booking or whatever. And so a couple of different venues sort of hit me up. And I ended up working at Curtain House on Sponsor Street because I advertised for a host and saw my resume and were just like, holy shit, like we've been looking for someone like you. So with the DJ agency stuff, you know, a lot of, you know, as we were saying, venues don't want the hassle, they want to outsource it. Mm-hmm. So my idea was actually to start a walking tour of Melbourne. That was like my get out of hospo kind of leave that behind, have a legitimate business kind of thing. And then obviously with less tourists and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's funny how it works. So yeah, now the agency's bigger than it was and I somehow am now in a better position than I was, you know, pre-COVID when I was working for other people and doing crazy hours. But
for sure,
it's given me, you know, a bit more perspective on, I think, work-life balance. Like before, you know, the hustle was real where always out, you know, working, was running a trivia night, you know, and then at the venue the whole time. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, because I'm working for myself, like on the weekends, I'm committed to being there, but during the week, you know, it's the DJ industry stuff. But I think my social life used to revolve around my work, where, you know, friends, I'd be, you know, to my friends, hey, come pop into work, you know, come hang, have a drink, whatever. Whereas now I'm making a bit more of an effort to catch up with them and have, you know, dinner with people and, you know, make an effort and try and make the 40th and try and make birthdays and, you know,
for sure,
all this sort of stuff. So
I think that happened for a lot of people, but because you were in hospitality, it became a bit more real because everything shut down. You realise, hang on, am I really? I'm sure you're friends with a lot of people you kind of work with, but then you're like, yeah, maybe I'm not when I haven't seen them for a year, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you definitely, I think you value the friendships a bit more and also learn not to work your ass off. So yeah, that's why, you know, going back to that app thing, you know, we were talking about, you know, if my business grows more, but it's like, I don't know, it's pretty, I'm in the sweet spot at the moment. Like if I took a lot more stuff on, I would probably be over leveraged and not have as much of a social life and catch up with friends. More responsibilities with tax shit, having to employ people, whatever, because I'm a one-man band at the moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the way I likes it for the time being. So, you know, hopefully it can grow a bit more with a few more venues, but I don't want to be, you know, some massive agency, you know what I mean, where I'm doing, you know, dodgy pubs and all this kind of shit.
Yeah, for sure. You want to work with the right kind of venues. I think where a lot of people during that COVID thing that were, you know, DJing or whatever might have gone and found something else to do with all the people that you've got are professionals and that's all they're going to do. You know what I mean? So that's why you were in demand again because they're good DJs. But as soon as the venues open up again, they're back ready to do it. They haven't gone and decided to go do something else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the weird things was one of my crew was working for Store DJ. And when lockdowns happened and shit like that, he was like, I'm fucked. Like, they're going under, like, all hell's going to break loose. And they were making so much goddamn money that I think they had to put extra staff on because, you know, there was all these, like, you know, younger crew who were working 10 hours a week in a cafe, getting $750 a week for doing nothing, sitting at home. So they were flush with cash. And so all these crew went out and started buying controllers. And they're like, during lockdowns, like, I'm going to be a DJ.
Yeah. And then,
And then after, you know, probably the first 6 months after lockdowns and like, the last one where it started getting back, a lot of venues I had DJs at, were slow to come back online, or owners and managers like, oh no, I'm going to get my mate to do it, because, they were charging fuck all, like maybe $30-40 an hour plus, free drinks and a bar tab. And, for all these fresh young kids, but they're all playing the same shit. Yeah. Like, they're all playing similar stuff that was curated off a Spotify list, or, the Beatport top, 40 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it took a while for, owners and majors to, because everyone was clawing the money back. They were pissing rent and insurance and whatever else. And so everyone wanted to chop any bit of fat possible. And so if they could pay $30 or $40 per hour for a DJ rather than 80 or 100, they were going to do it. But then the cream rises to the top. And I think these kids, when owners heard the same set every week for 3-4 months, they're like, not sure about this. Yeah. And that's what you get with, full-time DJs, more experienced DJs. They've got a lot more music, but they can also change it up and like listen to the crowd. Like if you have a group of 40-year-olds rocking, from a corporate thing, they can cater to that. Or if you've got, a group of 25-year-olds who are just finished up a university week freaking, treasure hunt or something, it's like we got it covered. And so, it's taken a while, but that's, I suppose, why I'm in the position I am, is because my DJs tend to be, A, bit more skilled, but B, a bit older and a bit more professional.
Mature.
Yes, mature is
older isn't the
politically correct word, Maloney. Thank you very much. And there's definitely some DJs that I deal with who would get pretty pissed off if I called them old. So mature is good.
Mature is good. Do you think that the Melbourne hospo scene is back to sort of pre-COVID times, or do you think that like it's never going to be the same, or times have just changed in general?
Times have changed in general because like the cost of living and everything like that, that's not specific to hospo. No. That is a community kind of thing. Like it's affecting everyone. You know what I mean? And so people look at hospo. There's restaurants especially. There's so many going to the wall, but also bars, everything like that. But it's literally a societal thing. Like it's not just hospo that's struggling. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I've lost my train of thought.
But what? And this is the thing. Okay, so what happens to these retail shops now are closing down, right? Yep. Which makes sense because of the trends of people buying online. Then once restaurants start closing down, what do people do with these physical spaces? That's the thing that's kind of a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I expected probably more to happen in terms of like creative shit and stuff like that. With the work from home, there was, office buildings that were vacant and, all that sort of thing. And I don't know, you kind of would have thought people would pivot and go, okay, we'll make it an artist space, or we'll do cheaper rent or something like that. But I think a lot of people and companies especially, but also individuals and families that own these buildings, like that's their asset. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so once they give it away cheaper, it's kind of devaluing the building they own.
And I think a lot of those buildings are owned by the same people.
Yeah.
So if you devalue that one building, the one next door and the one down the road is devalued.
Yeah.
So they rather have it empty than fucking...
Yeah, a lot of them do. And like there's places in the city that have literally not been occupied since lockdowns ended, But rather than put a pop-up store in there, or they'll do it for, 6 months and then double the rent, But yeah, a lot of them... I don't know, there's been other countries apparently that have pivoted quite a lot in terms of making communal spaces and, whatever with these, with commercial areas or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Melbourne's, it's coming back in terms of, I think, the people. Like, there's, like, working in the city on the weekends, you notice a lot more of the international students are back now, compared to a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. But, places can be busy, but it doesn't necessarily turn into money. No. You know what I mean? Like, a mate of mine who owns a club in Melbourne, which is like quite a big one, he was saying that they're doing pretty much the same numbers in terms of people through the door each week as they were this time last year, but their revenue, like their per head spend, is at like 40%. Yeah. You know what I mean? But their rent hasn't changed, their insurance hasn't changed, their staff costs haven't changed.
Staff's gone up. Yeah. Everything's gone up.
And the cost of goods hasn't, whatever, but people are spending less. So even if your club's packed, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make money. No. So some people look at it as, is hospo back? Well, yes, foot traffic's back. More people are out. Saturdays especially in the cities popping off. Whether or not that means everyone's making money is a completely different story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, depends how you gauge the hospo scene being back, really. Because you can go to... you can go to sick underground nights. There's internationals here every weekend. There's freaking, heaps of people doing heaps of parties and everything. So there's a vibrant nightlife, but whether or not the people behind that are making money and if it can be sustained remains to be seen.
Multiple factors there, though. Obviously, people are drinking less, I think, in general.
Yeah.
People are potentially... don't want to say the wrong thing, but they might be taking other substances because drinking is expensive, which may or may not impact how much they drink.
Have you spoken to your lawyer before you came on stage? I was the one who was trying to watch my tongue, but
but I think that definitely happens, right?
Yeah. And I mean, people are like, as I was saying before, like it's a fact that people are pre-drinking. You know what I mean? Like people aren't going out to venues anymore at 10 o'clock or whatever. They're going out at 12. And that whole time they're drinking at home, whatever, they're probably taking, some drug that's the cheapest thing they can get their hands on, but it's going to, make them good for 3 or 4 hours. So when they go to a venue, they might be there from midnight till 4 a.m. or something, but you might only be getting 3 drinks out of them.
Yeah, and that's when you used to get your big spend back in the day because people would be drinking and then they get pissed and then they buy shots and then they wouldn't really know what they're doing and they tip the waitresses and fucking whatever, right?
Yeah.
But now that's sort of the only time you might get to spend.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think, with the other substances is people are very health conscious. So if you go out drinking all night, that's not going to be good for your body necessarily. But if people go and take something else, then they're like, oh, I haven't put on all those calories and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's another factor potentially.
Very true. Like, yeah, I mean, compared to, where we started this interview, like in the mid-90s, like it is so different. Like, health is, definitely a thing. The frequency of people going out is definitely a thing.
You talked about Metro earlier, right? Now, I worked there for a bit as well, and I used to go there even in the underage days.
Yeah.
Now, think about this from a health perspective, right? In the mid-90s, you would go pay your $15 to go to Time Metro, whatever. You'd go inside where everyone was smoking inside, and you would drink as much Pepsi as you wanted to.
Yeah. Unlimited soft drinks.
Unlimited soft drink. And everyone was smoking inside, and I think you had to be under 17 years old or something. Now, that's crazy to think that that's what we were doing.
Unfucking believable. But, I mean, the thing is, though, like, that was a good facsimile of actual clubbing, though.
Yeah.
Like, before that was, like, blue light discos. You know what I mean? Which was, I mean, I didn't go to one, but I had friends DJ who used to run mobile DJ gigs and whatever. But, that was the most watered down, like, parents in the corner, freaking, like the mid-90s kind of underage clubbing. Like, I remember going to Chevron and fucking Anthony Pappa was playing. Yeah. Like, it was a good kind of facsimile of what overage clubbing was like. So that's why people actually went.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they were different times.
Different times. But it's even when the smoking in clubs or in venues, that was only 2007, right?
Was it that late?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like 2007 where they said no more smoking inside.
Yeah.
And then people changed real quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Now, hopefully, I'm trying to have big glasses half full. People can change their habits to go back to going out again. Maybe it becomes full circle.
Yeah.
I noticed when I was in the city the other day, a lot more people are smoking. They're not on the vapes as much. Maybe things can change again.
I don't know. Like, I'm not an economist, so I can't say what the future holds. But, Melbourne's always been such a arts-driven city. Yeah. Like, with, whether it's, arts, culture, laneway, graph stuff, music, clubbing, freaking, everything. But also, like, just before COVID, I think we reached 5 million people, and now we've taken over Sydney. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Whereas Melbourne used to be this kind of on a worldwide scale. It was like, we're just a little small city.
Yep.
5 million people is a fucking lot of people.
It is, but you got to look at also where they draw those lines. Like where we are still is metropolitan Melbourne.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like I became aware of this stuff during the lockdown.
Is Geelong?
Geelong isn't.
Yeah, right.
But Geelong is closer geographically than Portsea is.
Yeah.
So they are, say we're 6 million people, but that's in a very vast area.
Yeah, it's where the boundary is.
Yeah, well, the urban sprawl and all the rest of that sort of stuff.
But yeah, so I mean, we've got enough people to sustain cool shit. You know what I mean? Like in the 90s, we used to fly to Sydney to party and stuff like that because they had a lot bigger population. So you'd find like cooler niche kind of stuff, like in smaller venues doing like really niche kind of music and shit like that. But now Melbourne's, it's got the promoters do it, it's got the DJs do it, it's got the people that want to hear it, everything like that. I think, if we get past this kind of economic crisis and potential recession and all this kind of stuff, at the end of that, if people do have more cash and do have more disposable income, and inflation slows down, once again, I'm not a fucking economist.
No, but yeah.
But if circumstances change where people got more cash in their pocket, I think hospitality will freaking really benefit because if people have curbed it so much, like if they've got more cash and there's cool shit starting up again, I think people will support it, but I think they'll really give the whole city a boost.
I think one thing that people need to factor in is like everything's expensive when you go out now, right? But that person behind the bar has to be getting paid $30 an hour, which they probably deserve to be paid $30 an hour. But somewhere else in some other country, they might be getting $8 an hour, which means your drinks are more expensive.
Yeah.
The security guard that has to be on when there's a DJ there has to be getting $60 an hour.
Yeah.
You might be like, way more than that, but whatever they get paid, right? So all these costs is what's driving up the price of your meal and your drinks.
Oh, yeah.
And so we live in a place where people are getting paid what they deserve, but that's making it more inaccessible for people.
Yeah. And I mean, insurance is another massive one as well. I mean, fuck, everything is expensive, it's just fact of life. But yeah, if we do get more money in people's pockets, then hopefully, hospo benefits. We'll wait and see.
We will wait and see, man.
And,
what else?
And I mean, having said that, my business by any means isn't bulletproof, like with the DJ agency stuff, because, entertainment's going to be there for a while, but if shit really hits the fan, people are going to cut back and maybe go back to those $30 an hour DJs or whatever. Yep. If you're in hospo, I reckon you want to be a pub or a bottle shop. I reckon they're the two things that are probably recession-proof. Because if you're, on job seeker or, you're on, the pension or something like that and you're having a rough time of it, you're probably going to go to the bottle shop or go to the pub and, whatever.
The bottle shops, I don't really know how they make any money, man. Like, I get that they're people, like, volume.
Yeah.
But those independent ones, I can't quite do the maths on that.
I don't know. But, well, I mean, you're probably right in terms of volume, buying in bulk and whatever. But, it's like the hospitality industry. Everything's owned by freaking Coles or Woolworths now. So
that's the main issue with having cool small venues is that I think you have to have multiple revenue streams, and even COVID showed us that with bigger venues that didn't have bottle shops, that didn't do meals, that didn't do all this other stuff. Once they pull one rug out from under you, then you've got nothing to lean on. So everyone has to have more fingers in more pies,
Yeah. I mean, the one probably good thing that's come of it is there seems to be a lot less dodgy operators, like because now like wage theft used to be freaking massive, where people were opening restaurants and didn't have the capability to pay award rates.
Not paying super.
Like it was literally in like their kind of business plan that we're not paying super, we're paying cash, and we're underpaying our workers. And now I think one of the good things that's come out of it is that the people that are going into it now like know what they're getting into and are probably a bit more professional and above board and are tempering their expectations. They're not like a retired lawyer who wants to buy a bar so can do a bunch of coke and fucking give away free drinks and be the man or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's got a lot of shitty operators out of the industry, which is one of the very few kind of pluses, I suppose.
For sure.
But it gives other people opportunities as well. If there are younger operators who want to find that little venue or whatever that the big boys don't want to take on, then have a crack at it.
For sure. That whole sort of wage theft thing, once the international people weren't here, because they were the ones that wanted to work for cash, then all of a sudden everyone who is a resident here is like, no, I'm not working for cash, I want to be on the books. And then so that quickly stopped those people.
Yeah, very, very true.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, it's changed for the better because now the international is back, but they're all getting paid legit as well and on the books and everything, which it all freaking adds up. But if if you can't afford to stay open for 6 months, just see if you're going to be successful, or whether it be a restaurant or bar or whatever, you probably shouldn't go in it.
No. And I think and hopefully that sort of time with people learning those hard lessons is done, because I think a lot of people did have successful businesses in other aspects and like, how hard can it be to open hospitality?
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, they're bankrupt.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, not so much anymore, but there used to be people that was like kind of what they did was start a bar, make it cool, find some dude having a midlife crisis who literally finished high school, went to uni, got his degree, went into the workforce, worked his way up, and then got to 40 or 50 and went, I haven't done the sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. I'll buy a bar. Yeah. And there used to be dudes that set up venues and would just sell it, and then set up another one, sell it, and we're seeing that again, but obviously with bigger corporations, some of which are publicly listed and all this kind of stuff. But been going on for ages. But hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully that has got rid of a lot of the dodgy operators that just flat out refuse to pay people and all that kind of shit. And there was a fair bit of that going on before COVID. So
it's still happening after COVID.
It's so weird how like everyone frames like pre-COVID, post-COVID now.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. It's like, I mean, us included, but such a fucking life-changing weird time, and especially because we worked in hospo.
That's the
whereas
thing.
For some other people, who were office workers and they just work from home but still doing their same job, it's like.
Well, that's the other thing. With it, you take the financial side of it out of it. It changed people's habits and it changed younger generations' habits. You've got to think when you were 18 and you were first legally allowed to go to a nightclub, that was like a bit of a big deal. And if you didn't have that and all of a sudden you're 20 and you're addicted to your fucking Minecraft or whatever, like it's just changed your habits. Like you're never going to have that excitement of going to a nightclub because you're just not interested.
Yeah. I mean, there was also, like where I work on the weekends, I got into the lift with this lady and her sister, and they were talking about their daughter's 18th birthday. And on her 18th birthday at midnight, they had a glass of champagne with their mum. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you look at that and go, that's how I expected to see the clock turn over until I was 18, it's just like a bit disappointing, not how you pictured it. Yeah. But then going back to, the government payments, when lockdowns finished, these people might have been their 19th birthday, but they had all this freaking cash and they were like, let's have it. Yeah. And so they were running amok, but, that's when, I suppose some media as well were kind of like, things are looking bright, not occupancy, like spending's gone up by this. And it's like, well, it's not real money. It's not real economy. It's the money you gave these kids that they're, blowing. Yeah. But that's not sustainable.
For sure. And then that inflation plays a part in that, which makes them, it's a whole fucking thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, in summary, I don't fucking know what the next 6 months, let alone 2 years, is going to look like.
Yeah.
But Melbourne itself is, very adaptable and, very creative, and it's always got, good people ready to do good things and take risks. Yeah. So, I think whether people have more money in their pocket or not, people still find cool shit
to do.
And it might not be going to venues. Like it could be, going to an art gallery, going to an exhibition, going to, whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be going inside a venue to buy booze, but, there's always cool shit going on in Melbourne.
And another trend that's changed, I guess, with the whole social media thing is people want an Instagrammable moment, which is meaning that venues that previously would have just been black rooms with red curtains now have to actually level up and do something kind of cool, which that's a positive that's changed.
Yeah. I mean...
Well, it's not too gimmicky, though. There's a lot of gimmicky ones out there.
Well, and they haven't lasted either. Like, there was...
Have they not?
Well, there was one place on Swanston Street that literally had I think it was a pink Instagram room.
That doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think, venues are trying to differentiate themselves, I suppose, because we definitely went through a period where every new venue opening, had like, chrome and muted colours and mirrors and this, that and the other. It was all very fucking sterile and very...
That was shit.
And a lot of gastropubs were like that. It was just all freaking very same. Yeah. Whereas I think now people are trying to be different and, you know, taking, like as you said, a bit more thought in the decor and the this and the that. And, you know, and that's what sets you apart as well. Like, as we said, there's so many elements. There's, you know, the service, there's the food, there's this, there's the marketing, there's the whatever. But part of it is the aesthetic and how you feel and how comfortable you feel. Like, going into a venue. Like, I don't want to go to a pub and like a gastro pub or whatever and feel like I'm in a fine dining restaurant and the waiter's being an asshole to me. You know?
It's not a welcoming experience.
Yeah. I think people are putting a bit more thought into it, and that might be that they had time on their hands and have had a bit longer time to kind of plan shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, man, the tax, that's what kills people. The tax on booze, like...
astronomical.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah. And they trying to sort of look, if they're going to try and push people back into venues, then they need to give some of those owners and operators a bit of a break with that stuff. You know what I mean? Tax the big bottle shops, but smaller venues, like that, it makes it hard for them to even pour a fucking beer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about that side, but there's a couple of people, and especially I've got to give a shout out to Paris Martin, who is like a massive advocate for, you know, live music venues and pubs, and like takes a lot of her own unpaid time to kind of, you know, put together petitions and push back against the government and shit like that. Because, like, quite literally, so many of our entertainment venues and hospo venues are getting regulated out of the fucking industry. You know, and it's such a big industry that pays so much tax, you know, into the government and into our society, that it's like, at what point do we stop bleeding these people?
All these smaller breweries aren't going to exist in 3 or 4 years' time.
Yeah.
They had one get out, which was you get bought by a bigger one, or, like you were saying before, some dude with midlife crisis with too much money comes in and goes, owning a microbrewery would be cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're all going to pretty much close.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. Maybe it was a flooded market, but that's essentially because the tax is too much for them.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, a lot of these people could afford to be small and small batch, and they were making maybe 4 different lines, not huge numbers, having a couple of pubs, you know, stocking them. But there are some like that had got into Dan Murphy's that are going under, you know, or going into beer, wine, and spirits who are going under.
There's some smaller breweries of people I know that work at, and they are brewing these other smaller breweries beer because those smaller breweries can't even brew their own beer.
Yeah.
So they're doing it off premises. So now it's just a brand that doesn't actually have a brewery, and then because and that's cooked, man. That's the way the whole industry's going. They need to change that.
Yeah. But yeah, tax is a freaking massive one, tax and insurance. But, you know, time will tell, my friend.
Time will tell. What else is coming up for you, man? What else is doing? We've almost done 2 hours, man.
There you go. Jesus. Who would have thought I love the sound of my own voice? A lot of topics covered. It's been fun. No, nothing, just third Thursday of every month at Section 8, which is a night called Fourth and Back. And then hustling gigs for my DJs. I'm going to give a shout out to Agent 86.
Nige said he would come on the show ages ago, and then we've never sort of
I spoke to him. He's down to do it. He's just a very fucking busy man.
For sure.
Shout out to him.
He's probably one of the hardest working DJs in Melbourne.
100%.
Eric gives it a nudge too.
Yeah. Eric puts in hours. And he does so much weird shit as well. Like, he can be playing, you know, a 7-inch drum and bass set at Section 8 on a Wednesday for his Juke Joints night, and then be playing at the SB fucking ABBA and stuff like that. And he loves it all.
Loves it.
Like, that dude loves DJing. You know? It's like respect.
I'll just be like, Eric, do you want to come and play this? Yeah, man, I'll do it. I'll be there. Yeah, no worries, Maloney, I'm there.
Yeah.
Just loves it.
Absolutely loves it.
Shout out to, Nigel.
Sorry. Nigel, Hijack, Mishap.
So Mishap's a new one to the stable. She's been on the show.
Had on, yep. Fresh from, I won't say fresh from Perth. She came over in October last year, but
slotted straight into the Melbourne landscape.
Hit the ground running, and like just super, super passionate and like, you know, absolutely about it. Made good connects. Is an awesome person as well. So, you know, more power to her. Hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, get her on some festivals this summer and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then there's, you know, some of the old crew, Tom Showtime, DJ Mars, DJ Flagrant, who's kind of retired pretty much.
Is Tom still DJing? Because he's doing the restaurant thing.
The restaurant's his main thing, and he's like one of those dudes that's got into the 45s as well. And so he pops up now and again. Definitely not to the point where some of the others are who are, full-time DJs. He gets to pick and choose his gigs a bit more.
Yep.
But yeah, he's still still DJs a lot of like 45 stuff pretty much. Like,
I've got a 45 of his up there.
which one's that?
Happy Pants? Something Pants? Something Pants.
Was that a remix with Side Projects?
No, he's got maybe, yeah. And then he's got
Or
another
Funk
one.
Pants or something? I can't remember.
And he's got another one which is up there, Soul Alchemy, with Enfa.
Oh, yep.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's a good track, yeah.
But yeah, he's a very talented dude. He pops up, once in a while. Ghost Notes is up in Canberra at the moment. Naoto, who was doing really well down here, decided to go back to Tokyo. So there's a whole bunch of crew, and then there's affiliated people as well. There's a lot of DJs out there, but then there's also people that have got nothing to do with 100% Phat, who I deal with a lot because of the DJ booking stuff and everything. So
For sure.
but yeah, keep an eye on those DJs. Section 8, third Thursday of every month. Players Club at Section 8, which is Mondays starting, I think, November 11. We're launching this year.
Sponsored by Wanderer.
Sponsored by Wanderer.
If it's not, it is now. We're making sure.
Yeah, whoops. Thanks, Curves. And yeah, apart from that, just around town and doing my thing.
For sure, man. Well, MJ, it's been good to chat. I'm glad I finally got you down here.
Indeed. Sorry it took so long.
And I'm sure you'll be able to come back soon and we can talk about what's been happening in the world of MJ, aka Michael Jordan.
Oh, he had to go there, didn't he? No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I've been following the podcast as well. And, so many good episodes, people I don't know, but also, like I looked at Kodiak's, Corey's, like I had no idea he was a skater. I just know him from straight up hip hop, hip hop and bass music, and as a DJ, and even some of Hijack's backstory and stuff like that. Like obviously we've had conversations. I've known him for years, but some of the like ins and outs of it and stuff like that, like that's fucking awesome, man.
Man, some people have messaged me and they're like, I've known such and such for 20 years and I had no idea because I guess you meet someone and they don't sit down for 3 hours and tell you their whole backstory.
Yeah.
It's so it is cool.
And like Frank from Union Heights, I thought he was from Melbourne. Yeah. Until I saw the podcast.
The gong, yeah.
Yeah, I had no freaking idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, congratulations on the success, man. It's like, you've definitely hit a sweet spot, and I've been loving all the guests you got on. So keep up the good work, my man.
Oh, thanks, man. I don't know if it's a success, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
It depends how you term success.
Well, I'm doing this for street cred, so I don't know.
Well, no, I'm not saying that you've done it, but a lot of people who I reached out to early days that may have. I talk to you every now and then anyway, so you weren't going to blank me. A few people have blanked me.
Yeah. And then reappeared after like a year and just been like,
it's always one of those things like how long do you leave it before you touch base again?
Yeah.
But yeah.
True. But definitely head in the right direction, man. So, you're a good interviewer as well. Not as good as that dude from Hot Ones, but you're getting there.
I've been talking shit like this forever.
I know.
All right. Great. MJ, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers.
3,000.